Coming up on Regarding Men, how not to be a simp at Christmas.
Well, hello there, friends, and welcome to Regarding Men, where we hold men in high regard and where red pill isolation comes to die. I'm joined today by my good friends, Paul Elam and Tom Golden.
Very good.
I'm Janice Fiamengo, and today we're going to talk about a YouTuber named Adam Ragusea. That's it, Adam Ragusea, and his answer to a fan question about why there aren't more female chefs on YouTube, female food tubers, I think they're called. And his answer is a textbook feminist answer in some ways, and we thought it was worth discussing for that reason. A little bit about Adam Ragusea. He's a very popular YouTuber. He has 1.17 million subscribers, and most of the episodes that he records get hundreds of thousands of views. And he does sort of regular food sort of stuff. Like, he's not a fancy chef as far as I can tell. He does ordinary types of foods like pancakes and New York style pizza and pot roast and things like that. And he does shows with titles like Why People Love Cast Iron Pans and Why I'm on the Fence, and Does Sugar Belong in Tomato Sauce? This isn't my personal cup of tea, but he's sort of down to earth. He's a funny guy. He's kind of self-deprecating. He does a good presentation, a sort of science-based presentation focusing on food. And he was formerly a professor of journalism at Mercer University in the state of Georgia. And he quit that earlier this year in order to devote himself to his food YouTube channel. So obviously he's doing very well. And personally, I'm glad he quit teaching since I think he's a dangerous guy. But we'll get into why he's a dangerous guy, but he's dangerous on YouTube as well, unfortunately, at least when he gets into topics about female chefs on YouTube. So let's look at the clip and we'll start talking about his answer.
Let's see what he's got to say.
Why are there so few prominent women chefs in the food tube sphere?
Wow. So that's a big question, and I think we can kind of talk about lots of parts of it. It has to be acknowledged up front that, like, I'm part of that problem, right? I am taking up space that could be occupied on this platform by someone who isn't another one of me, right? And I was pretty conscious of that when I was working in traditional media, that, like, I was, the outlets that I was working for did not need another one of me. And that was kind of part of the reason why I sort of, like, ditched that sort of normal path of advantage.
Oh.
They don't need another me.
Wow. I mean, the first thing to do is call BS on that. That is utter hypocritical BS. It's virtue signaling at its most empty and flaccid. He doesn't mean that. If he meant it, he would delete his channel immediately and, remove himself from YouTube altogether. Does he really believe that there are too many of him? And what a horrible sexist thing to say, as if all male faces are simply one of amongst an undifferentiated mass of maleness that reaches a certain amount on YouTube and then becomes too much. It's grotesque and ridiculous. And if he does believe it, he must have some sort of mental disorder.
Well, I'm also, I can't believe this guy started with an idea basically so stupid that it drools and plays with itself in public. he's asserting that there's a zero-sum game, that there's only so much room on YouTube. Last I checked, I think YouTube had lots of room. So what is he even talking about to begin with? Taking up space. It's a free form grab bag. Anybody can pitch in and do this if they want to. There's nothing literally stopping anybody. He's casting himself as though he's in the way of women succeeding as YouTube cooks or presenters or whatever you want to call them. Like he's in the way of this, and at the same time, he's going to sit here and play like he's the salvation at the same time.
Yes.
Absolutely just grandiose garbage.
Yes.
And I do think very condescending toward any female who would want to do this with her time.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, he's like the anti-alpha male. He's doing everything he can to not look like an alpha. In fact, he wants to look the opposite of the alpha. He doesn't want to say, I'm proud that I got 1.17 million people. I'm doing a good job out here. Suck on that. It's like, forget it. It's like, oh, I'm nothing. I'm nobody. It's the opposite of the alpha. It's like the culture is pushing our young boys into trying to be the opposite of the alpha. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
I love the way he at one point gestures towards the space in which he is operating, as if he disappeared, a woman would pop up in his place and simply take over the channel. It's just
right.
Let's keep going.
Dare we go ahead?
By the way, I lost count so far of how many times this guy says I and me and points at himself. It's constant. It just didn't stop that whole spiel to begin with. Anyway, please, let's go on.
Pointing really tickles me. Here we go.
Advancement and started teaching, and then kind of randomly fell into this. So I have tried in my capacity here to highlight creators, female creators who are not exactly like me, who I think that you should go and watch. I've talked about Helen Rennie a lot. I've talked about Fatima's Kitchen on TikTok, which is like if there's any social media food person whose food I actually want to eat, it's Fatima's Kitchen on TikTok. Got to check her out. I'll put the link in the description. So I've tried to do that, but I think that there are some other reasons why, sort of a lot of the top food YouTubers are just, dudes like me. One is you. Like, to a great extent, you're the problem, I think. Which is to say that, like,
there for a moment, please.
You're the problem, Paul.
Well, yeah, his audience is the problem. And that's another way. I mean, it's really sort of a brain dead way to express it for Gordon Pansy here. But I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, he's blaming everybody.
I thought he goes into this now rant about the horrible abuse that women, food presenters or female chefs presumably undergo when they are online. And I just thought that was quite bizarre, really, to say that. And he's indulging in the most absolute of biological essentialism here, the most ridiculous sexist and condescending pandering that all women are so frail, such fragile, delicate reeds that they can't bear the kinds of comments they may get on their channels. Now, I don't know what kinds of comments are made on female YouTuber, food channels as compared to males. I can't imagine that there are that many. Yeah, they're sexual. They're really,
and we all
really
know
creepy.
that women can't handle sex.
yeah, and of course he would never get into any discussion about whether it might actually be an advantage to be a very attractive woman, food tuber, and whether in fact one might attract quite a few viewers simply on the basis of being a good looking younger woman who could use her sexual attractiveness in order to gain followers. No, he's not going to talk about that. He's only going to talk about the sublime terror experienced by women who get these creepy sexist comments. Well, as far as I know, if you've got your own channel, it's pretty easy to delete comments that are negative. You can even hire somebody to go through and delete them for you, so you don't even have to read them. Like, this is the silliest, flimsiest excuse for why there aren't enough prominent female food tubers. And what does that even mean? What would be enough? What are we talking about? Are there none? Or what would be sufficient to satisfy the requirement here? I don't even buy that there is a problem in the first place.
He's playing into the feminist line. He knows what the feminists think, and he's trying to just harmonize with that as best as he can.
By blaming the audience by blaming the audience, he's essentially saying there's no demand. He's saying out to people in general, there aren't more because you aren't demanding it, you aren't watching it, you're the one in the way.
You're not picking women.
Yes, you're, and that's the undercurrent of this whole thing, is that we should all feel bad because I guess people lean toward, and if you look at his production values, this guy didn't stumble into anything. He knows what he's doing. That's a total line of bullshit right there.
Yes.
And it is humongous work. I considered some time ago, like doing some food stuff related for the MGTOW portion of our audience for cooking before. And it's really hard when you start getting into trying to orchestrate cooking and to make a worthwhile production of that. You need a lot of expertise to know what you're doing. That's why the guy's successful. And he's sitting there shitting on that and insisting that the problem is that people don't like women cooks enough. So people need to watch more women cooks on YouTube.
Well, men have this advantage of having a penis, and that makes everyone want to watch them on YouTube a lot more.
Yep.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. The weird, I don't know if this is falls into the category of the humble brag, but that notion that that he just fell into doing this, which he stresses a number of times. Also that he claims he left traditional journalism because there were too many guys who looked like him. And so he left it. I mean, I find that really hard to believe, that he made major life decisions about his profession based on the fact that he looked around and saw too many white guys, presumably, and felt that he should get out. I mean, that is such if he really believes that, that's a kind of mental disorder. That's a sort of self-loathing that would make me not trust anything this man would tell me. If you take that kind of thinking to its logical conclusion, there's no reason he should go on living, since he's simply taking up space that others could occupy. He can't actually believe this. And so why is he professing it with so much emphasis and conviction? It's the virtue signaling hypocrisy of it, and the really rotten message that it sends to younger guys who might have been his students in his journalism classes, or are watching his YouTube now, or God forbid, his own sons. I think he does have children, his own sons listening to this kind of self-hating rhetoric. I just find it appalling, and I'm embarrassed for him at the faux humility and the faux self-deprecation that he demonstrates.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's something sinister about this too. I think you hit on that note good, Janice. I wouldn't trust this guy in any way. Anybody that is that openly disingenuous and dishonest, and so obviously pandering to his audience for favor as a chivalrous, humble, sacrificing, servile man. And it's, I mean, never trust people like that. They make the worst friends between men. I never trust a guy is that obsequious.
Yeah.
They can't be trusted.
Yep. Should we go ahead?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
All right, here we go.
Being a YouTuber or being a TikToker or anything like that, like, involves getting a lot of horrible comments and harassment and just soul crushing things that people say to you. And when it's bad, it's bad enough for like me, a grown ass man, but like a woman, a young woman, I can only imagine the terror of that. And I would think that would be a big disincentive to a lot of young women, especially, from getting into this. Just the creepiness alone, let alone the like abuse.
Well, and the abuse you get is different than the abuse that women get. I mean, women's abuse is sexualized and frightening and targeted in a way that, like, people will come into your comment section and say you're stupid, or, they'll be like, oh, you're gay or whatever. And it's just like, grow up. Yeah, but with women, it's a lot more frightening. And frankly, it's the reason why I'm sitting off camera right now. Like, I'm a grown up and I can shake it off, but also I don't want to have to shake it off. So I just avoid it. That's how I cope.
Oh God.
And that makes me happy.
Yeah.
Let's stop that.
That's the end of that clip. But yeah, what they're doing is they're telling you that the reason women aren't there is because, just like she says, she doesn't want to put up with that bullshit. She'd much rather sit back on the sidelines and not be seen.
Something, I hate to be cliche, but if you can't stand the heat, stay out of the goddamn kitchen.
That's what they say. I mean, it's just silly. For one thing, I don't buy it. I really don't. I don't buy that a woman doing a serious cooking show on YouTube is getting so many horrible, terrifying, creepy comments.
Really?
If she is getting them, I assume she would simply delete them. Or, as I said before, get somebody else to delete them. I mean, you're pretty safe when you're behind your camera. Nobody can get at you. They don't even know where you live or anything. So what's so terrifying about a few, maybe, I don't even know what they're talking about. What are they? I'm going to come and rape you because I like the way you showed how to cook a chocolate cake. I mean, I just, I just can't imagine that that's a really high proportion of the kinds of comments. And if this were true, it would mean that there would be, very few women on YouTube at all. Because it would be such a terrifying place. Right. Is that the case? Is it true that there aren't very many women starting up their own channels on YouTube, and even starting up channels in which they deliberately flaunt their sexuality and, deliberately wear very revealing clothing and have themselves all made up to look extremely sexually attractive and all that? No, I think there's quite a few out there. So, well, these are his feminist talking points, and he's demonstrating to all of us that he knows his feminism 101. He knows the kinds of self-abasing statements he has to make about how easy it is for him and how difficult it is for women. And again, it's hollow cant.
Yeah, I really wanted to ask her what she was talking about. What sexualized comments?
She doesn't want to have to get over it. And I'm like, God, why don't you get over that? I mean, how infantile can you possibly be? I don't want to go where there's any mean words in the world.
Yeah.
But I make my living on the internet.
That's about it.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I just don't see any evidence that this is the case. I do not. I see an awful lot of women making careers for themselves on YouTube, some very effectively with really interesting takes on all sorts of issues, some simply flaunting the fact that they're attractive young women and making a lot of money on that basis, and obviously using that and benefiting from it for all it's worth. So this is just, wow, what a different universe.
To tell you the truth, I have seen plenty of women in the past who go to places like 4chan and others and troll there to get really sharp reactions from that community, and then parlay that into raising money on GoFundMe, saying, look, I was attacked. And you can profit from that as a woman. This is just insanity. There is no such thing. I'm sure there's some 13-year-olds that say some pretty obnoxious things to women and a lot of other people on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's your tolerance level, if that's where you throw in the towel on life, well, good, throw it in. You're a loser.
Yeah, and we've all had negative comments on our channels, and it's like that's not really a big problem.
God.
Poor Paul.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Nobody
I mean,
can talk to me about this stuff.
there's a lot of other things that are harder than that, you know. But again, it's the poor women have it hard, and these men with a penis, they have it easy.
Yeah.
Especially
It tires them after a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because words are meaner to girls.
Should we go to the next clip?
Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
All right,
Why
let's go.
not?
Let's see what they've got to say.
So another way in which I think it's, all our collective fault is that we have to remember that, like, if YouTube isn't surfacing the kind of content that you want to see, it's not like the kind of old days of traditional media where, like, you can blame some cigar chomping executives who are, making decisions about who we should put on primetime television, and, like, you can blame them for making what you believe are the wrong decisions. Something like YouTube, the algorithm, TM, we don't understand it in all of its mysteries, but, like, the one thing that YouTube will tell you, and that I think is self-evidently true, is that it is chiefly just a feedback loop. Oh, I lost my microphone. The algorithm, TM, is a feedback loop. Whatever people watch gets watched more, because the algorithm basically just sort of causes the snowballing effect. So more views mean more of the algorithm picking it up and putting it in front of other people's eyeballs, right? So if you don't watch it, YouTube is not going to surface it for other people. So that's not just if you want to see more female food creators or anything, right? It's about what you watch. And in that sense, I think that all of us need to, shoulder more responsibility for what gets surfaced and doesn't. It's chiefly about our demonstrated preferences.
Stop.
And if you're looking for more female,
Oh boy.
Oh no, I don't think we needed quite that very, very long explanation of how YouTube algorithms work. I think most people have figured out by now that the more people watch a certain sort of channel, the more YouTube will show them that channel. Unless, of course, it's men's rights or conservative content. In that case, YouTube will hide the kinds of things you're interested from you. But, he's basically making the obvious point that, yes, one's preferences in this case are what bring some YouTubers to prominence and prevent others from becoming as prominent. And yet, okay, so there it is. It's our preferences.
I don't know, Janice. I would put my vote in for the cigar choppers. Because they can pick and choose which videos are going to be put in places where they might go viral.
Mm-hmm.
It's like YouTube chooses which ones. If YouTube wanted to have more women who were, food tubers or whatever they call them, that could happen overnight.
Well, we know Google does that all the time.
So
if you
YouTube.
Put into, if you do a search on Google for, important scientists, you're going to see an awful lot of female scientists. There is that kind of engineering going on all the time. Yep. I know that with Google. I assume that YouTube might be doing the same thing. I don't know. I would certainly say that it is not the case that YouTube is trying to hide female food,
Absolutely
people.
Not.
So
they're pushing it,
Yeah. I mean, that's I don't know what he's getting at there.
Should we go ahead? All right.
Why not?
All right, here we go.
The next bit's the best.
YouTube creators. Go Google top female food, top women on food YouTube. Somebody has curated that list for you. Go follow them and watch them, and then YouTube will serve you more.
And I'm linking some of my favorites in the description here. Now, the last factor that I will discuss that is much more directly self-critical is that it's like, it does take a certain typically male audacity to presume that you should be making instructional content for other people, right? a certain thing that like men, at least in sort of Western civilization, are conditioned to feel entitled to the notion that they know things that other people need to know, and I'm certainly a part of that phenomenon. And that's not a good thing, I don't think.
Stop there.
I mean,
That's not a good thing, he says.
That's not a good thing.
He's accusing men of thinking they can teach people things. How evil. Everything this guy is saying is telling me that, one, he believes that there aren't more women YouTubers because nobody wants to watch them. That's what he believes. And he may be right.
Yes.
He may be right, yes. In the cooking world, which I have to admit some guilty pleasure, I follow some, it is dominated by very skilled, energetic, dedicated men.
Yeah.
It's what happens. And in a lot of other professions, when women had the choices of the kind of sacrifice that it takes to really excel in that way,
Yeah.
the stuff you have to give up in family life and social life, women make lifestyle choices. So when you see the same thing comparing why aren't there more women CEOs and politicians and everything else, it traces back directly to women's choices. But the more important thing for this cuck is that he firmly believes that women are inferior at this. And he's trying to make excuses for it, and he's trying to shame the whole world into watching more women. You'll notice it. Oh, everybody, please go over there and watch. Well, dude, if they were able to draw an audience of your size, they'd be doing it. You can't tell me with people like Julia Childs and others and Paula Dean that this is totally off limits to women. He's just making an excuse for human nature.
Yeah.
And he's peddling shamelessly, if I might add.
And he's embarrassed about being able to teach something.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
wow.
That's a new low, really. I mean, I've read lots of things about toxic masculinity and all the different forms it takes, all the different forms that male privilege take. I don't think I've ever seen, well, we've heard about mansplaining, of course. So I guess this is a branch of that men actually think they might have something that other people would be interested in learning about, that they might have something to say and to teach others. Whoa, that's toxic, eh? Wanting to share things in an interesting way to make people's lives more interesting and to make the world a better place. Wow, that's pretty awful. And he actually says that, I guess that's a bad thing. Oh, yeah, gee. And it's so untrue as well. There are all sorts of women who believe they have lots of very important things to say. Most women who are advertising hair products and how to make yourself up to look really good. There's an awful lot of YouTubers doing that, making themselves up on YouTube and making a lot of money doing it. They obviously feel they have something to teach and they manage to garner a pretty large following. So this is utter nonsense. He just knew that he had to take this opportunity to bash men. Oh, and my favorite part of all was when he had to specify that it was men in Western civilization, right? Those are the particularly toxic, entitled men thinking they have things to say and to teach people. Arab men, well, that's a different thing. And of course, men in China or in Africa, they don't suffer from that particular brand of toxicity, but men in Western civilization really do, and they should feel ashamed of it. It's just, wow.
Yes.
Yeah, he had to get his intersectional feminist points in there.
Yes, and he did so.
He did.
Definitely did so.
And it does lead me to wonder why he doesn't have a belladonna recipe. I mean, he could easily just, make his final contribution to womankind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, why not? That's the logic of everything he said about male entitlement and male privilege. Is he should get out of there. He should exit the scene.
They don't deserve the space.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. Do we have the end of that, Tom? Because I think
see if we've got the end of it.
Where he exposes the complete, utter hypocritical self-contradiction of his whole message.
Ooh, here we go. Ready?
Well, I don't know. What do you think? Save me.
I'm just going to push your boat out into the water and let you float.
I mean, fundamentally, what I would say is that, like, I really had stepped back. Like, I started teaching because I knew that no one needed more of this in their lives, right? And I did not intend to have this career. It kind of happened accidentally. And that doesn't mean I had to, like, ride the ride once the ride was offered to me by Providence, and I did, and I take responsibility for that. But on the other hand, like, it chose me, you chose me. And so if you want to choose someone other than me, do that. And, choose someone in addition to me, please. But again, Fatima's...
Wait a minute. So in fact, the whole thing he said at the beginning was totally wrong. It isn't anything to do with him taking up space, because you could choose others. It's not, as Paul mentioned, a zero-sum game. And he knows that, even when he went through that long preamble about how the problem was he's taking up space. Now suddenly, it's not that he wants us to choose someone else in his place. It's that he wants us to choose somebody in addition to him, but keep on watching him. So, I mean, this guy, and what it comes down to is that this is the sort of man, and I know this man well because I have met him in legions in academia. Yeah. This is the sort of man who will always throw other men under the bus, right, in order to prove his unimpeachable moral superiority. He will talk about men and how there are too many men in this particular profession. There are too many men here. We need to hire more women. He never steps out. He does not absent himself from the scene, even though he'd have us believe he did that in the case of his job in journalism. But no, he will keep on doing this and making money and profiting and talking about what a great guy he is. But he will expect other men to sacrifice themselves, and he will willingly sacrifice them. If he ever gets into a position of power, if he's ever handing out awards, or, if he has, decision-making power in who to promote, you can bet he will promote women, and he will always make the choice that proves his own moral unimpeachability, and he couldn't care less about men who might be struggling on the way up. And I find him just appalling. And again, I'm horrified to think of his son, if he has one, listening to him go on about how there are already too many men who look like him in various spheres of endeavor, and how there should be fewer of them. Just gross.
Well, I think he's right about one thing. There should be less men like him. I mean, I would agree with that sentiment. We need a lot less him than we're getting these days. I also want to point out, to me, I don't get why there is an audience for that kind of sentiment, as insulting as it is toward women. And it's almost like he feels like he has to assume the stupidity of people to buy this, because once you understand these things, this is a very transparent display by him. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take a lot of brain power to figure out that this is, what it is. And by the looks of the reaction of his audience, he was correct in assuming their stupidity, because it's been massively upvoted.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, this is the orthodoxy, right? And 100 years ago, he would have talked about, how the Anglican Church was the answer, and more people should keep the Sabbath holy, or whatever it happened to be. And he probably wouldn't have believed that either. Or he talked about how he prays for sinners, And he probably wouldn't have done that either. This is just somebody who has learned the orthodoxy, and he has an audience that approves of that orthodoxy. And there's a very powerful pleasure, although personally I've never felt it, but there seems to be a very powerful pleasure in conforming to these kinds of socially sanctioned platitudes. And that's what it is. And once you know that that's what it is, it's hard to take it at all seriously. It's hard to feel anything but contempt for somebody who spouts such nonsense. But obviously a lot of people are very excited to see a young man, a hip young guy, he's 38, I think, spouting this nonsense. And it seems to work at some level.
Yeah, it's the end game of brainwashing in some ways.
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah, it's like, once your identity has been broken, once they've beat you down with shame and guilt, then you start apologizing for who you are. Not for what you did, but for who you are. We can see him apologizing for who he was. Apologizing for having 1.17 million followers.
Yeah. But ironically, apologizing for it, but not in a mind frame of shame. I mean, I don't think this is a man who worries about his masculinity. I don't think he actually reflects on it with any kind of concern. I don't think he wakes up at night thinking, God, I'm taking up space. I think he's puffed up with pride that he is better than other men and that he has this sensitivity and he's learned his feminist talking points and can spout them out with seeming sincerity. And that makes him feel very, very good about himself.
You may be right about that, but I think that what we're seeing is his public face. The public face, which says, I will deface myself as much as I need to in order to look like I'm not, above anybody else.
And he will enjoy the rewards of doing that, which is another bit of irony in this. It will enhance his presence, and he will push out even more deserving women who are just trying to get a break in the YouTube sphere for chefs.
Do you think that someone who has that kind of attitude that pulls people into his channel or pushes them away?
I think you look at the vote counts on that video and the mocking way it was titled, and there's a great appetite for crapping on men out there. There has been for a long time, and now it's worse than ever, and it's pure bigotry furthered by hateful people, but it's popular.
Yes.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, it's amazingly popular with a lot of men, I assume, as obviously also primarily with women, I would think, but also definitely with guys that watch that channel. They upvoted it too. And, and that's the thing. I don't understand. I don't quite understand how one inhabits that level of self-contradiction. Don't watch me, watch her. Oh, no. Watch us both. So everything he said about how there are too many of him and too many people who look like this. Oh, I hated all that, pointing at himself and yet he's riding that and I think extremely pleased with himself that he has such sensitivity and he is profiting from it. But the victims of this, the people that it really hurts, are the genuinely sensitive, honest guys who aren't interested in playing fake games. Right. And who actually seriously take to heart this question of whether there are too many guys who look like them around, and whether their desire to teach or their desire to excel in something is actually in some way toxic. And those are the guys that get hurt by this kind of completely fake, holier than thou rhetoric. And I hate him for purveying that with his smile and for profiting off it, because it is exterminationist. It's about as hateful as you can get without actually outright saying to young guys, you should kill yourself. But that is the end logic of what he's saying. You should kill yourself because you take up space that a woman could occupy. and I'm going to take up space, and I can claim my right to do so because I'm preaching to other men about how they shouldn't take up space.
Right.
Wow, it's a really sick game.
It is indeed. So true, Janice. Are we there?
Unfortunately, I think we may be.
Unfortunately.
I mean, actually, I have to admit, I watched some of the guy's channel. I should end maybe on a more cheerful note. I did watch some of his stuff, and some of the stuff is fine. And, you know, and he's actually, you know, I don't know why he even answered this question. Like, if he just said, I don't know, frankly, it's out of my, you know, outside of my sphere of expertise. You know, I wish women.
The girl behind the camera who wrote the question.
Yeah, that's it. Because, you know, his channel's pretty good. He is. I agree with what you said, Paul. He's skilled. He's funny. He's clear. I found his stuff. It was fun to watch. Does a good job with the video. Production was really good, so and he does have something to offer. So why is he pretending that he actually thinks he doesn't? I mean, it's just incredible.
Exactly. Sad in a way.
Yeah.
It is, but that's life in the misandric culture. That's what we're dealing with.
It's true. So true.
And I always have to remind myself, you know, we do have a choice about what we believe. And just like we're seeing it regarding the men, there's not everybody is taking this hook, line, and sinker. And there is more and more men beginning to save themselves from this kind of stupid thinking.
Thank goodness.
And that's always great to watch.
Yeah, man. Come to Regarding Men and see for yourself.
Yeah. And, you know, and that is, I guess, the upside of this. When you see this kind of self-loathing, at least as a rhetorical, you know, piece of posturing or whatever that is that we just saw, when you see it that baldly presented, I think it does have the effect on other men. The other men go, whoa, no way. I'm not going to even pretend I agree with any of that nonsense. And so it is a really useful trigger, I think, to more thoughtful men or men who have stronger principles, more courage, more fortitude to come out and say, no way, like, forget that. I'm not going to pretend that I believe that even for a second. Yeah. And I really encourage men to speak out against that kind of nonsense whenever they see it and to know that it isn't true for them personally.
There's a link below.
Yeah.
Just in case you want to go express your opinion.
Yeah, so join us at Regarding Men.
Indeed.
Short announcement before we close. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Hope you're going to have a great one. We're going to have a Regarding Men special meeting on Christmas Eve at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You can join us all in a huge, what should be a very large meeting. But I'm looking forward to it just to spend a couple hours for the holidays of our membership. There is a link below to join if you would like to join Regarding Men and join us there for that meeting and many others. We're doing at this point over 700 meetings a year. We are 70% toward our goal of 1,000.
Pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Those meetings are fantastic. You know, the men are getting a lot out of it. They're getting close. And I've seen 2 or 3 instances now where men are meeting other men in their own location from other men they've met from Regarding Men. So it's starting to fan out. You know, it's great. And people are getting to know each other and people are finding a support, you know. Yeah.
It's a wonderful place to be.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Oh man, now you're gonna make me puke.
I love Mr. Rogers. Don't you puke on Mr. Rogers.
Okay, I promise.
Who's my friend? Yeah. On that note,
Mr.
Rogers and men are good.
Oh, I was already there.
Men
Are.
Stop it.
real good.
Real good.
Are we finished?
Okay.
You
All
all
right.
take care.
Have a great week.
We'll see you. Bye bye. Merry Christmas.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.